I am more on a wider canvas for the nation, for the national economy, and the economic growth at which the nation is progressing at this stage. What should be the meaning of this?
So how would you formulate it? So we can just take it down, it will just give some clarity to us. We
Yes,
can
my
just
lord, my formulation is this.
You can reflect on it and tell us.
Lord,
how would you formulate
yes,
it? We
Lord.
can just take it.
Lord, sometimes, Lord, why I say or. Lord, suppose there is a private mine. The government may not take over the ownership.
But you have to complete the sentence.
I'm sorry.
When material resources of the community need legislative intervention or taking over ownership or control.
To achieve, my lord, that common good of the
I'll tell you how you began.
control of the material resources. I'm sorry.
39B is a measure for developing a welfare state with the ultimate goal of achieving the common good. Then is it, comma, when material resources of the community need legislative intervention of taking over ownership or control?
Of ownership or or control
For taking.
of material resources
Need
of
legislative intervention of taking over ownership or control
and oblique or, my lord.
and or.
Because Constitution says and or is, my lord, my interpretation of material resources of the community.
for distribution.
Yes.
Just going back to this, can we, we're not putting you into a corner. It's a thinking aloud. Can we say that you don't accept either of the two extreme positions? As a government, one extreme position is that every element of private property is a material resources of the community. That's one. Just think over it. Second, that no private property can be a material resource of the community. There are two extreme positions.
Lord, I think I respectfully agree.
Isn't it? Because
I
there are
respect.
two extreme positions that no private property can be a material resource of the
That
community.
is one extreme.
And second, that every private property is a material resource of the community. So we don't, we eschew both the... Can we take it down? Can we take it down? Because
Yes,
it will give us some clarity later on.
Yes, Lord. Lord, the test, if challenged, my lord.
You'll have to formulate it.
Yes.
Because then it will depend upon the context.
Exactly.
See, this is everything.
Lord.
This will be maybe the crux of the matter, because then everything perhaps may depend upon the context, upon the situation. As the chief rightly said, the interpretation of the 50s and 60s may not be relevant now.
What?
Constitution, therefore we say it is a living document.
It has to be seen
Changes its meaning.
in that way. You have to tell us, and you'll have to also tell us how should we understand community.
Yes.
So that
My lord,
also
may I do one thing, my lord? Instead of, my lord, your lordships being troubled with writing down, well, I'll prepare one paragraph and give it to that. This is how my stand is, but I, my lord, agree with so far whatever, my lord, the Chief Justice has said, and my lord Justice Dhulia has said, that it depends upon the context. Depends upon, my lord, what is community. Contextually, it can even be an individual if the material resources are community based.
No, I'll give you an example. For example, let us say there is a community, a tribal community, right? They know where a particular herb or something is to be located. Well, now that belongs not to an individual, maybe lying in an individual's farm or agriculture field, but it will belong to the entire community, right?
Correct.
But the community, will it be only that tribal community or people of that area or the entire country? That you will have to tell us, because when 39B was being debated, one of the bill was to make it community instead of, it should be citizens instead of...
Lord K.T. Shah, Lord Mr.
So it was not done. So deliberately this word community was chosen.
To make it wider.
But how wider? When wider and when narrower?
Instead of, my lord, my responding immediately, my lord, can I at the end of it give, my lord, my version of it? But so far I am, my lord, completely, Lord, bow down and in agreement with what my lord the Chief Justice has formulated.
I was just, as you were having this conversation, I was listening to Brother Dhulia and you, and I made a note on the context. Now, in the context, we can identify three factors at least. This I've just done it offhand. One, what is the nature of the resource and its characteristics? Airwaves, very different from a private property of a different nature. So what is the nature, the spectrum? The nature of the resource and its characteristics. Two, the impact of the resource on the general well-being of the community or the common good. Third, the consequence of the concentration of ownership and control on the common good.
So that may perhaps not be
some resources you may not want them to be.
Yes, yes, like uranium. I understand.
Right.
I bow down. That it cannot be with one individual.
Scarcity of the resource.
Yes. Your Lordships, if that my lord is added, my lord, then scarcity or any peculiar significance of that resource is not left.
These are by no means exhaustive factors. They
Yes.
again have to be evaluated from case to case, from context to context.
Yes. And the class should be identifiable class. The community doesn't mean the entire country. That whatever is there, you take it and distribute it. That's not, my lord, a juvenile way in which the constitutional framers have, my lord, understood.
So the thrust of 38 and 39 is that wealth of the nation or the material resources, as they say, should not be concentrated in a few hands.
If it is required for common good, and not that it should not be, the government is enabled through parliamentary legislation to intervene and, my lord, take either ownership or control. So there is no prohibition that it cannot be. But if other conditions are fulfilled, then the legislature can intervene.
The word is shall, not 39, 38. The state shall strive to do so.
Yes, while making the law. Yes, my lord. Therefore, I am saying, your lordships are right, that enabling provision is to make the law where this will have to be borne in mind. Lord, I have given the definitions of control, ownership, etc. But just only one line. Lord, the Constitution says ownership and control. But I would respectfully urge that the words are disjunctive. It can be or also. For example, Lord, why I say so?
Read ownership and control as ownership or control.
And or both. I'll give the example, Manoj. For example, in a private mine, there is a huge tract of land, my lord, belonging to me. And there is some, my lord, a mineral discovered there. The government may not be interested in taking over the ownership of the land. Ownership may retain with me. They will take control over the land. So how much mineral will be excavated? What will be the royalty to be paid?
And ownership, actually.
Therefore, my lord, I am saying that depending upon the context, it can be ownership and control. It can also be ownership or control, depending upon, my lord, the context. PDF 11.
So 2B was solicitor's 16-page note. I said solicitor has been uncharacteristic in this case. Now I realize it's 74 pages.
My lord, why I am little longer? Well, there are two reasons. A, I quote the relevant para so that your lordship may not have to shuffle through, my lord, various volumes. And second, my lord, the reason Winston Churchill gave, that I am writing you a long letter because I don't have time to write a short letter. So because you really need precise understanding of the subject to write something clear.
Churchill or Shaw?
Pardon?
Bernard Shaw, actually. It was George Bernard Shaw.
Yes, my lord.
Isn't it? That's from my recollection. I mean, I may be wrong.
My lord, there are three individuals. There are three individuals.
Brother Dulia has made a comment. I think that's relevant.
To be short.
Yeah.
My lord, if it is not a privilege.
No, since you are such a
Writing is difficult.
Urdu adab and Urdu literature, somebody said that I had to write a very small letter had to be written.
हिंदी में बोलिए.
एक छोटा सा खत लिखना था, इसलिए ज्यादा टाइम लगा. छोटा सा लिखना.
Yes. And तो नहीं ना मुख्तसर सी बात है.
हाँ, मुख्तसर हो जाइए.
Yes, there is a ghazal, मुख्तसर सी बात है, तुमसे प्यार है. But that's the short thing I want to say. I don't need an essay for that. Mukhtasar means, my lord, short.
It takes more effort to be precise.
That's exactly what, my lord, Churchill or Bernard Shaw or whoever. My lord, these are the three individuals to whom most of the things are attributed. Churchill, Bernard Shaw and Oscar Wilde. And Mark Twain. Yes, my lord, I use my learned friend, Mark Twain. And the same thing happens with Mirza Ghalib. Unfortunately, my lord, completely footpath level शायरी is attributed to him. Last में वो मरीज लिख देते हैं, गालिब लिख देते हैं. Lord, para 9, Lord, what was in the mind of the framers of the Constitution? Lord, now the economical infrastructure and the concepts, Lord, have changed from municipalization, that is nationalization, to, Lord, free trade, etc., privatization.
Investment.
And that's what Dr. Ambedkar very prophetically said, that it is purposefully not made unequivocal because there can be different ways of dealing with an economic scenario.
So what was good for the country in the 50s up to 1991 may not be good after 1991.
Exactly, they wanted to keep it open.
Evolving concept, and the clock comes back. We don't know when, after some time, privatization becomes so stressful that we go back to what was good in the 1950s in the decades to come. We don't know.
Therefore, it is left to Parliament.
It's all evolving.
Yes. And Manoj, this New Deal by Roosevelt, Manoj, is that capitalist.
Is in soon after independence, they said the new dams, Hirakud Dam, Bakra Nangal, they are the new temples of India.
Yes, Bakra Nangal was the first.
Because that is what was necessary.
Yes, absolutely.
But now, after all that development, now the focus is on individual or private development. Country has developed to some extent. Now the private development or the individual development, therefore liberalization, privatization, globalization, investment.
Keeping pace with the international economic development, etc.
LPG.
Lord, just Lord, subject to correction, Lord, out of interest, Lord, this New Deal by Roosevelt.
This is the Second World War.
The Second
After
World War.
29 to 33, not the Second World War, sorry. 29 to 33 when there was a great, the Great Depression.
And those 4 horsemen and 3 musketeers, that's how the Supreme Court used to be consisting of 7 honorable judges and 4 judges always in majority did not permit Roosevelt to carry out any of these.
Because what happened was all the social welfare legislation like minimum wages, maximum hours of work, they were struck down by the Supreme Court of the UK or the US on the ground that they interfered with the private freedom of contract, or therefore the due process clause.
Yes.
And the due process clause was applied in a substantive sense, so as to allow the court to oversee what policy Parliament was, the legislature, Congress was following, the Houses of Parliament were following. And the Justice Holmes was the dissenter.
Yes.
The Constitution does not permit the court to adopt a policy which a majority of the judges think is proper. Eventually, the New Deal legislation was upheld by one judge of the Supreme Court. There was a court packing agenda. They thought that they will alter
that was the word used, court packing.
By introducing a few more judges there.
10 more judges.
But then what happened ultimately was one judge switched his vote. And that vote which was switched is called in history the switch in time that saved the 9.
Saves the 9. And there are some interesting material on that.
And then they started upholding, all the social welfare legislation.
It was 3 versus 3. One judge was not clear, and it is written somewhere. They used to travel. They used to ensure that they travel in the same car and constantly being persuaded, and he remained with the 4.